in accordance with legal, regulatory, and workplace requirements. Okay, it's a long way of saying you are going to write about what happened at your session. You're going to write the requirement. They're going to be objective, which means you're only going to state the facts and what you observed. Okay, this isn't your time to tell a story or tell your opinion or how you felt. Session notes should be what you observed, programs you ran, okay, any behaviors you noted, okay. Session notes should be written in a professional manner, okay? And again, avoid giving your own opinions. Session notes are objective, okay? Now, we're going to get into what if a parent reports something to you, what if there are setting events. We'll talk about that, but the general rule, okay, for session notes is only state the facts and what you observed, okay? Avoid your own opinions. All right, so let's get a question. Which of the following sentences would not be acceptable in a written session note? So we're looking for a answer choice that would not fit in a written session note. A, when I arrived at session, the client was clearly upset at his parents. Okay, what's wrong with this? Well, you are stating an opinion. Okay, you're saying you arrived at session and the client was clearly upset at his parents. Now, how did you know this, right? How did you know his emotion, right? Remember, we're trying to avoid emotions and mentalisms and thoughts because we can't measure those, okay? We can't observe those. So A is very subjective, okay? You can't be for sure the client's upset at his parents, right? So A is very subjective. Um, this is a very weak choice, and right now, this is our best answer choice for what would not be acceptable, but we're always going to read all our answer choices. B, today we worked on functional communication and receptive instructions. This is good, right? Because we are just telling exactly what programs we ran, what skill acquisition programs we ran, and that's it. This is what we worked on, straight to the point, objective, great. C, the client attempted to hit me twice with a closed fist. Again, great, right? Exactly what happened, even with some detail, okay? They hit me twice with a closed fist. Good detail, good objectivity, okay? That's all we're looking for. You don't need to say, well, when the client got angry, he attempted to hit me, okay? Because now we're starting to get into opinion. We just want the facts, okay? So C is good. D, the client's brother asked to join in on session while we were playing a game. Again, fine, right? Maybe relevant, maybe not, but it's helpful because maybe we can work in something with the brother. But in the end of the day, this was objective. You just wrote about what happened, okay? You didn't add anything to it. And that's the key, right? We don't need to be adding color. It's not a time to exercise your writing ability, okay? We're just talking about what happened in session. That's it. So A is the most unacceptable, okay, out of these because we're talking about the client being clearly upset when we can't say that for sure. All right, continuing with session notes. Again, session notes are a requirement of all RBTs, regardless of where you work. So if you work at an ABA company, you are going to be required to write session notes in some form, okay? Session notes are beneficial to your supervisor and other team members, okay? Session notes make others aware of what happened outside their sessions. So remember, you should be going back and reading session notes from your team members and from your supervisors, okay? It keeps you updated on what's going on outside of your session. Remember, we're dealing with humans, we're dealing with behavior. They don't exist in a bubble, so things outside of when you're working with the client affect what's going to happen during your session. And session notes are a great way to kind of stay up to date on what's going on when you're not there, okay? So you should also discuss setting events and other variables that may have affected the client's behavior. Remember, what's a setting event? A setting event is like an antecedent, okay, but it often happens minutes, okay, or hours or days before the actual event. So an antecedent happens directly before a behavior. A setting event happens further before a behavior, okay? So if they have a bad morning and you get there in the evening, okay, whatever happened in the morning could be a setting event, okay, for the evening behavior, okay? If parents are getting divorced, parents are fighting, if medication changes, if there's a routine change, all these things that happen not necessarily directly before, okay, but there's still a correlation to the behavior, should be reported, okay? So, question, which of the following answer choices are true about setting events? A, setting events occur before the behavior, sometimes minutes, hours, or days before the occurrence of behavior. Yes, that is true, okay? They come before antecedents. Okay, antecedents come directly before the behavior. Setting events come even further before the antecedent. Okay, so A is true. B, setting events are similar to antecedents. Yes, they're similar, right? In the fact that they affect the behavior. Okay, they'll evoke behavior, they'll alter the behavior. Okay, however, they come before the antecedent. Okay, so they're not the same as an antecedent, but they are similar. C, setting events represent a correlation between a change or an event and the occurrence of a behavior. Yes, right? We're looking for correlations between what happens before the behavior happens, okay, during the day, and observable, measurable terms. And setting events can do that, okay? A common one is poor sleep, right? If you're working with children with autism, many have trouble sleeping, okay? And that can be a setting event to having more behaviors, okay, or different behaviors, okay? So that's relevant. There's a correlation between that bad night of sleep, okay, and the occurrence of a behavior. So which of the following are true? D, all the above. All right, last slide. Session notes are a requirement of all RBTs, regardless of where you work, commonly called SOAP notes, okay? Most commonly called SOAP notes, I should say. Many companies will use SOAP notes, and this is what you're going to be writing, okay? So when you hear SOAP note, it's the same as session notes, okay? It's just an acronym to help you out and describe what you're seeing, okay? So SOAP notes, S, subjective. So this is the subjective part. What was reported to you, okay? We're not looking for your subjective take. We want to know what was reported to you by the client, by the parent, by anybody else you talk to, okay? What subjective opinion? It's almost like an indirect assessment, right? What was reported to you? Record that. Objective, okay? What did you observe, right? That's everything else. That's the programs you ran, the data you collected, how was behavior, etc. Okay? Be objective, what you observed, to the point, factual, factual, factual. A, assessment, okay? Any relevant data, okay? How many occurrences of behavior were there? Did you master any skills, okay? Are they struggling with any skills? What's the relevant data, okay? Moving forward, because P, plan, okay? How are we gonna plan our future sessions, okay? What could be changed, what could be adjusted? So SOAP notes aren't a definitive guide, right? But they're just kind of a helpful way to map out your notes, okay? So you might not even see SOAP notes on the test, but it's worth mentioning, okay, as a way to kind of formulate how you should write your session notes, okay? So which answer choice does not belong in a session note? A, your clients reported that the client had a great weekend, okay? Well, is that a possible setting event? Sure, right? The client had a great weekend. Maybe they went into detail. Okay, and the behavior was great that day. So possible setting event. If your client had a birthday or whatever it might be. Okay, so A is pretty good. So let's look for a better choice, right? Of what does not belong in a session note. Because if B, C, and D are very strong, okay, then maybe we leave A out. Okay, so let's look at B. How the client felt when you told him no, automatically out, right? Why? How the client felt, okay? We don't know how the client felt because we can't observe it, we can't measure it. What that should be is when you told him no, what did the client do? Did he cry? Did he scream? Did he do his work? Did he stop? What did he do? Not how he felt. What did they do? Okay. So B is probably our answer. What is C? What programs your client mastered? C would work, okay? And then D, relevant events from the morning. Again, all setting events are important, so try to put those in your notes. So what answer choice does not belong? B, how the client felt when you told him no. All right, that wraps up E4. Not a hard part of the task list, okay, but very important. So important you know it. They may ask you questions on the exam, so be familiar with it. As always, like, subscribe. If you need study materials, please check out our website or one of these links, which I'll put in the comments and descriptions below. Any questions, let me know, email me, leave it below. As always, keep working, keep studying hard, and I will see you soon.